Welcome to Uncloseted Conversations. Even if you stumbled upon this channel by accident, you are welcome here. The stories here are from my heart, from my soul, from my pen to your ears. I hope that you will stay a little longer and open yourself to the magic of storytelling. Here I write fiction, and though not always aligning with reality, it still tugs at heartstrings. Stories are escapes and sometimes a balm to the soul. So, enjoy your time here, and if reality presses down too loud and too hard, come knock at the door, come in, take a seat, grab a coffee, and just exhale. These are veil-bound stories, and the space is free and non-judgmental. Sit back, earphones or pods in, and let's listen to another exquisite romance. Fires of Aroha. Act 1, Scene 1, Tired Has a Name. Taror Tahana stared at her reflection in the mirror. For the past 5 years, she had been living a lie. She was Maori, proud of her ancestry, the inked line of her moko on her chin a declaration of who she was. She had never been ashamed of that. No, she was ashamed of betraying it. Or maybe, betraying herself. Her dark, tired eyes stared back, holding the weight of sleepless nights and choices she now questioned. She pulled her straight black hair into a sleek ponytail at the nape of her neck, brushed a hint of lipstick across her lips, and tried to smile. Her cell phone buzzed on the dresser. A sigh escaped her, deep, bone-weary, a release of the fatigue that had coiled in her for years. Era Rakina's name flashed across the screen, the son of her father's business associate. She picked up, voice clipped. Eru. I'm on my way. He had been a constant through the storms of her life, a quiet presence when everything else had collapsed. When he asked her to start a relationship 6 months ago, she had said yes, not from love, but from exhaustion. Exhaustion of family pressures, of loss, of living a life that wasn't entirely her own. One last glance at her reflection. Purse in hand. Phone tossed in. She walked out of her apartment into New Plymouth's cool, slightly stifling morning air. Eru waited below, a smile lighting his face. Taror forced her own. She took his arm when he offered. They hailed a cab and waited on the pavement. Thanks for coming with me, he said softly. I get lost with decisions. Buying a luxury car, it's a big one for me. I'm glad I can help, she replied, but he was already shifting into talk mode, rattling on about his business, growth, and the need for a new car. Taror nodded along, her mind half elsewhere, lost to someone she had lost, someone whose absence still burned quietly inside her. Someone she had torn to pieces, or had torn herself. The cab arrived. Eru opened the door for her. She slid in, across to the other side. He closed it, leaning toward her. Taror, a new place opened. The guys at work say they sell the best supercars, some exotics, even. He didn't wait for a response before giving the driver the dealership's address. Through the city, past the coastline, they arrived. Taror waited for Era to open the door. At the entrance, he moved ahead, excitement radiating. She followed as he reverently touched each car as if they were treasures in a museum. Audi, BMW, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Lotus, McLaren, Mercedes, Porsche, even 2 Bugattis stood proud in the showroom. Taror trailed behind him as he gestured to the Lexus models. What do you think, Taror? This is incredible. She nodded, unmoved. Today was not about cars. Today was sacred. Bittersweet. Heavy with memory. Act 1, Scene 2, Past and Present Collide. 5 years ago, today, she had rejected a proposal that would have shifted her world. Fear was a cruel master, chaining hearts until the very last breath. And Taror had not been ready to break free. Era disappeared around a row of pillars, leaving more cars to admire. Taror stood mid-showroom, listening half to his words, half to her own heartbeat. She turned to find him, and collided with someone. Oh God, I'm so sorry. A clipboard flew. Strong hands caught her before she hit the floor. A voice came from the person, and her eyes lifted slowly. Taror's world tilted on its axis as she stared into storm-gray eyes. Her knees gave way, and the world went black. Taror. Taror, can you hear me? She blinked at the cold marble beneath her, felt Eru's hand brush her face. Instinctively, she pushed it away, eyes darting until they landed. Rangiaria Tamihana. A ghost. The last person she expected. The owner said you fainted, Arrow murmured, gesturing vaguely toward Ringi. How was this possible? When had she returned? Why here? Why now? All questions collided in Taror's chest. Her gaze remained fixed. Ringi, storm-gray eyes shifting through emotions faster than she could follow. The woman who had left 5 years ago, who had sworn never to return, and now owned this dealership. Fate's cruel humor indeed. She pushed off the floor, Aru's hands steadying her waist. Strength barely returned. She wanted to shake off the tremor, but she couldn't. Aru moved to fetch water, leaving her with the past now made present. Rengi moved slowly, deliberately, like a predator approaching prey. Every step measured. Taror's heartbeat soared, her hands trembled, throat went dry. Heat surged through her face. She was trapped utterly. And in that moment, Taror Tahana realized she was about to face the greatest challenge of her life. Act 1, Scene 3. Rangiaria Tamihana. The noises around them dulled into a distant hum, like the ocean heard through concrete walls. The air thickened, pressing against Taror's lungs until each breath felt borrowed. She tasted metal at the back of her throat, panic, memory, want. She had never prayed harder for disappearance than she did now. For a fissure in the earth. For darkness. For mercy. But mercy had a name. Rangiaria Tamihana stopped a few feet away. Up close, she was not the woman Taror remembered, and somehow, she was exactly her. Time had sharpened her, carved restraint into her posture. Power sat on her shoulders like a tailored coat, worn often, worn well. Her hair was pulled back, severe and elegant, exposing the strong line of her jaw. She wore no smile. She didn't need one. Those storm-gray eyes, still the same, searched Taror's face with an intimacy that bordered on violence. Not touching, yet touching everything. You always did faint when the truth caught you unprepared, Rengi said softly. Her voice. It hadn't changed. Still low. Still deliberate. Still capable of undoing years in a single syllable. Taror swallowed hard. Her mouth opened, but nothing came. 5 years of rehearsed speeches, of imagined confrontations, of apologies sharpened and discarded, all of it turned to ash. Her voice broke. She stopped. Tried again. I didn't know this was yours. Rengi's gaze flickered, just once to the cars, the glass, the polished steel, and excess. Then back to Taror. I know, she said. If you had, you wouldn't be here. That landed exactly where it was meant to. Taror flinched. Rengi crouched then, lowering herself until they were eye to eye. The world narrowed to breath and proximity and unfinished sentences. Up close, Taror could see the faint scar near Rengi's temple, the one she had kissed after a fight that ended in laughter and tears and promises neither of them kept. You look tired, Rengi said, not unkindly. Taror laughed once. It came out wrong. Tired has a name. Yes, Rengi replied. It always did. Footsteps approached. Voices. Aru's voice concerned, earnest, unwanted. Rengi stood smoothly, stepping back just enough to put air between them, to give Taror space she didn't ask for and didn't want. We should continue this later, Rengi said, already retreating into composure. If you're staying conscious. Their eyes locked one last time. Nothing was resolved. Nothing was forgiven. Nothing was dead. And Taror Tahana knew, deep in her marrow, deeper than shame or duty or fear, that the lie she had been living had finally found her. And it had Ringi's face. Act 1, Scene 4. Aru Rakina senses the shift. Aru returned with the water, his stride brisk, efficient. He was good in moments like this, useful, present, reliable. He handed the bottle to Taror and waited until she took a sip before relaxing, just a fraction. You scared me, he said softly. You went down so fast. I'm fine, Taror replied. The words were automatic. Too smooth. Too quick. Aru noticed. He always did. That was the problem. He scanned her face, the set of her shoulders, the way her hands still trembled despite her effort to steady them. Taror was many things reserved, stubborn, guarded, but fragile wasn't one of them. Not like this. His gaze drifted, following the invisible thread pulling her attention elsewhere. And that's when he saw her. The woman standing near the glass office at the back. Calm. Commanding. Entirely too still for someone who had just watched another person collapse at her feet. She was speaking to one of the sales managers now, posture relaxed, eyes sharp. Ownership radiated from her, not just of the space, but of herself. Something in Aru's chest tightened. He didn't know why. He just knew this woman mattered. "Who's that?" he asked casually, nodding in her direction. Taror stiffened. The smallest movement. A fraction of a second too slow. But Aru caught it, the way one catches a lie not by sound, but by silence. "That's the owner," Taror said. Her voice held, but only just. "Oh," Aru replied. He watched her carefully. "You two know each other?" Taror twisted the cap of the bottle once, twice. Plastic groaned under her grip. "No," she said. Another lie. Not loud. Not dramatic. But it sat wrong, like a shoe that pinched only after a few steps. Aru nodded, accepting the answer he didn't believe. He followed her gaze again, just in time to see the woman glance over, brief, assessing, unmistakably aware of Taror's presence. Their eyes met. The air between them shifted. Aru felt it then. A pressure change. Like weather about to turn. The woman looked away first. Aru exhaled slowly through his nose. 5 years, Taror had been distant in ways he couldn't reach. Present but elsewhere. Loyal but not anchored. He had told himself it was grief, family weight, old wounds that needed patience. He had offered steadiness in exchange for time. Now he wondered quietly, uncomfortably, if he had stepped into a story already halfway written. "Do you want to leave?" he asked, testing the question like a bruise. Taror's answer came too fast. "No." He studied her. Something had found her here. Something she hadn't been looking for. Something that knew her far too well. Rakina straightened his jacket and smiled for her sake. But inside, a cold understanding began to form. Whatever this was, it didn't belong to him. And for the first time since asking Taror Tahana to stay, he wasn't sure if she ever truly had. Act 1, Scene 5, Rangi area Tammy Hannah takes measure. Rangi leaned back against the glass of her office, arms folded loosely, posture relaxed enough to be deceptive. Through the transparent wall, the showroom unfolded like a chessboard. Polished steel. Calculated desire. Human tells everywhere. She didn't look at Taror directly. Not at first. "Awaidi," she said quietly, without turning. "Take the gentleman through the options. Keep him busy." "Yes, Miss Tammy Hannah," the manager replied, already moving. Rangi watched as Awaidi approached the man, Rakina. She'd heard the name earlier. He looked the part, tailored jacket, confidence carefully worn, ambition humming just beneath the surface. The kind of man who believed proximity to power meant possession of it. Taror stood a few steps behind him. Still. Too still. Rangi's jaw tightened. 5 years ago, Taror had filled space without effort. Laughter, sharp opinions, restless hands. Now she stood like someone bracing for impact, every muscle coiled inward, as if the world might take something more from her if she relaxed. "What did you do to survive?" Rangi wondered. "And who did you become to do it?" Aru gestured animatedly as Awaidi spoke, already lost in numbers and specifications. He touched Taror's elbow lightly, possessively, without thinking. Rangi's eyes darkened. Taror didn't pull away. That hurt more than if she had. Rangi catalogued the dynamic quickly, ruthlessly. He spoke, she listened. He decided, she accompanied. Not cruel. Not overtly controlling. But unequal in the quiet ways that mattered most. A choice made from exhaustion, not love. Rangi exhaled slowly. 5 years ago, Taror had chosen safety over fire. Had chosen fear over truth. Had chosen to walk away from a life that would have demanded everything. And here she was now contained. Careful. Tired. Rangi felt something old and dangerous stir in her chest. Not jealousy. Something sharper. Recognition. She straightened as Taror finally looked up. Their eyes met again. This time, Rangi didn't look away. Taror's breath caught, Rangi saw it. saw the flicker of want, of panic, of memory colliding with the present. The woman Taror stood beside meant something to her now, yes, but not in the way Rengi had once meant everything. Rengi's mouth curved, just slightly. Not a smile. A decision. She tapped the glass once, softly, and Awaidi glanced over. "Bring them the keys for the McLaren," Rengi said. "The orange one." Awaidi hesitated. "That's not on the floor today." "I know," Rengi replied calmly. "I want to see how he reacts." Her gaze never left Taror. Because it wasn't the man she was measuring anymore. It was the space between him and the woman she had loved and, if she was honest, still do. And Rengi area Tamihana understood, with quiet certainty, that this reunion was not an accident. It was a reckoning. Act 1, Scene 6, under Rengi's gaze. Taror felt it before she understood it. That pull. That pressure between her shoulder blades. Like heat from a flame, she refused to turn toward. She stood beside Eru as he listened to Awaidi, nodding, smiling, pretending interest, but her body had already betrayed her. Rengi was watching. Taror's spine straightened involuntarily. Her breath shortened. She became acutely aware of herself, of the curve of her mouth, the placement of her hands, the way her chin tattoo felt suddenly exposed, ancient and intimate. She hadn't felt the scene in 5 years. She lifted her eyes. Rengi stood behind the glass of her office, framed by steel and light, the city faintly reflected around her. She didn't move, didn't blink. Her gaze held Taror like a boundary line. Step forward and everything changes. Taror's throat tightened. Memories surged uninvited. Bare feet on cold tiles. Arguments that ended in laughter and tears. The weight of Rengi's palm at the small of her back. The way her name had sounded in Rengi's mouth, Taror, reverent, dangerous. She swallowed. "You left," Taror reminded herself. "You chose this." Eru's hand brushed her lower back, grounding and unfamiliar. She flinched this time before she could stop herself. Rengi saw it. A flicker crossed her face, too fast to name, but Taror felt it like a blade sliding home. Shame burned hot and immediate. Not because she was with someone else, but because she had never learned how to want without apology. Rengi's gaze softened then. Just a fraction. And that was worse. Taror looked away, heart pounding, chest tight, the lie of her life suddenly loud and clumsy in her mouth. Act 2, Scene 1, Engines and Absence. The McLaren arrived like a promise made of noise and arrogance. The doors of the private bay lifted, and the orange body gleamed under the showroom lights, sleek, feral, unapologetic. The engine growled to life, low and powerful, a sound that demanded attention. Eru froze. Then he laughed, loud and unrestrained, hands running through his hair as disbelief lit up his face. "You've got to be kidding me," he said, eyes wide. This is it. This is the one." Awaidi smiled, professional and precise. "Ms. Tamihana thought you might like to experience it properly." "Experience it?" Eru echoed, already moving toward the car. "You mean?" She held up the keys. "Passenger seat's yours. If you're comfortable." Eru was already nodding, already forgetting everything else. "Taror, you have to see this." "I'll stay," Taror said quickly. Too quickly. He hesitated, but the engine spoke louder than hesitation ever could. "I won't be long." Awaidi opened the door for him, and moments later the McLaren rolled forward, engine snarling as it exited the showroom and disappeared down the street. Silence rushed in behind it. Taror stood alone. Across the showroom, behind the glass, Rengi remained in her office, still, composed, watching. No distraction now. No buffer. No noise. Just the past and the present breathing the same air. Rengi's reflection overlapped Taror's in the glass, two versions of a story that had never truly ended. Rengi didn't move to leave her office. She didn't summon Taror. She simply waited. Because some truths had to walk toward you on their own. And Taror Tahana, heart hammering, knew exactly where this was headed. Act 2, Scene 2, The Shape of No. Taror didn't move. Her feet felt anchored to the polished floor, as if the marble itself had claimed her. The office door across the showroom might as well have been a border crossing. One step forward, and there would be no pretending left. Don't, she told herself. You survived by leaving. And yet, 5 years collapsed into a single image. Rengi on one knee. Not dramatic. Not performative. Just Rengi, steady and sure, holding a simple ring between her fingers like an offering rather than a demand. Her hands hadn't shaken. Her eyes hadn't wavered. I choose you, she had said. If you'll let me. Taror remembered the way her chest had caved in on itself. How love had felt too big, too dangerous, too final. How the weight of ancestors, expectations, duty, fear, all of it, had roared louder than her own heartbeat. She had said no. Not gently. Not cruelly. Just empty. No explanation. No fight. No plea for time. She hadn't trusted herself with words, because words might have betrayed the truth she wasn't ready to face. And Rengi's face. God. That was what haunted her. Not anger. Not tears. But the moment something essential went still behind Rengi's eyes. The way she nodded once, as if sealing a contract with fate itself. The way she stood, reached out, then stopped herself. I won't chase you, Rengi had said quietly. But don't come back unless you mean it. Taror hadn't even stayed to pack. She ran that night. Now the past stood behind glass, patient and unyielding. Taror's fingers curled into her palm. If she walked away now, she could preserve the fragile architecture of her life. Eru. Family peace. The safety of predictability. She had learned how to exist without wanting too much. Hadn't she? Her gaze drifted to Rengi's office again. Rengi hadn't looked away. She wasn't calling Taror in. She wasn't blocking the door. She was giving her the choice Taror had refused to give 5 years ago. Taror's chest ached with it. Avoidance had kept her breathing. But it had never let her live. She took a step. Then stopped. Fear whispered all the old lies. You will destroy everything. You are not brave enough. You don't get to ask for forgiveness. Taror closed her eyes. For the first time in 5 years, she didn't run. Whether she crossed that floor or not, something had already shifted. The lie was cracking. The present was demanding honesty. And Rengi area Tamihana. Still watching, still waiting. Was the reckoning Taror had postponed long enough? Act 2, Scene 3. Steps interrupted. Taror's shoes clicked softly against the showroom floor, each step a small rebellion against 5 years of silence. Her pulse drummed in her ears louder than the echoes from the showroom walls. She wasn't running. Not anymore. Not from the past. Not from Rengi. She reached the midpoint between the polished rows of cars and Rengi's glass office. One more step, and she could knock. One more step, and she could finally speak words she had swallowed for half a decade. One more step, and... A roar of the McLarens sliced the air. Eru. Already back. Engine idle, breath still shaking from speed, adrenaline dripping in unspoken words. He jumped out, hair tousled, eyes bright with the manic thrill of the ride. In that instant, Taror's courage scattered like leaves in a sudden wind. Oh, wow, Eru exclaimed, slapping the roof of the car and laughing. Did you see that corner back there? I swear, this thing's alive. Taror's step faltered. Her hand, poised to knock, hung in the air. Rengi's storm-gray eyes followed the scene, unblinking. She said nothing, but her presence was a knife edge, quiet and unwavering. The tension between the three of them thickened, and Taror felt it coil tight around her chest. Eru approached, practically vibrating with energy. Taror. You have to see this footage. No, wait, let's take another spin. You have to feel it. Taror's voice caught in her throat. Words failed her. Everything failed her. She swallowed hard, trying to anchor herself. Rengi remained, serene, watching. Not moving. Not flinching. Waiting. Patient, unyielding. Taror realized, with a hollow pang, that courage was a fragile thing. One moment, it had walked her toward truth. The next, it was drowned out by the roar of another life intersecting hers. And still she couldn't move back. Not entirely. Not yet. The office door beckoned silently. The past. The reckoning. The truth she had run from. But Eru, oblivious and alive, had stolen the moment. Taror's hands clenched into fists. Her chest ached. Her throat burned. And Ringi's eyes, still, like they had all the time in the world. The story hung between them, suspended, impossible, raw. And Taror Tahana knew, some doors open only when the timing is cruel. Act 2, Scene 4, Desire Denied. Era grinned like a man who had just stumbled into a dream. Come on. Did you see the handling on that curve? That acceleration. He practically vibrated with excitement, the McLaren gleaming behind him like a promise he could almost touch. Taror followed silently, but every step felt heavier. Her chest burned, and her stomach twisted. Courage had returned in part, only to be strangled by timing and by the memory of what she had never faced. I want it, Era said, pointing at the keys still held by Awaidi. His voice carried the thrill of conquest, of obsession with perfection, unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. Ringi, behind the glass of her office, shifted slightly. One fluid motion, quiet, deliberate. She tapped her phone, and when Awaidi answered, a single command was enough. It's not available, Ringi said simply. Her eyes didn't leave Taror. Arrow froze mid-step, confusion spreading across his face like wildfire. He looked at Awaidi, then at the car, then slowly, cautiously, at Ringi's office. And there she was. Still poised, storm-gray eyes fixed on Taror. Calm. Dangerous. Unyielding. Arrow's brow furrowed. Wait, what just happened? He asked, voice a little too loud. Why isn't it? He trailed off, watching Ringi, trying to read the unspoken, trying to decipher a story he hadn't been part of. Every second he lingered, his curiosity collided with the tension that hummed between Taror and the woman behind the glass. Taror's pulse pounded in her ears. She dared not meet Era's eyes. Avoided them like a plague. Looking at him now felt impossible, too full of questions she couldn't answer, too full of truths she hadn't faced, too full of the storm she had tried to outrun for half a decade. Era's excitement faltered. Confusion, curiosity, frustration, all mingled on his face. He didn't understand. Couldn't understand. And Taror? She realized something she had long ignored. The past never truly left. It only waited. Waiting for the moment you had no choice but to face it. Her hands clenched. Her stomach turned. Fear took hold once more. And once again, she found herself unable to speak, unable to act, unable to meet the eyes that demanded her truth. The car, the showroom, the city outside, all faded into the background. Only two presences mattered now, the man who wanted what she could not give, and the woman who had never stopped wanting her. The hour had come. But courage? Not yet. Act 2, Scene 5, Trapped by the Gaze. Taror pivoted, stepping toward the far end of the showroom, pretending a sudden interest in the sleek black Lexus that had caught Eru's attention earlier. Her chest burned, pulse hammering, every footfall weighted with the effort of pretending normalcy. Just get out of line of sight, she told herself. Just breathe, just move, just anything but. Her eyes flicked to Ringi's office, half hoping the glass would betray nothing. But Ringi's reflection clung to hers like shadow and substance, storm-gray eyes unwavering. Every attempt at distance only highlighted proximity. The further Taror moved, the more the glass seemed to shrink the space between them. Every step she took was mirrored by the intensity of that gaze. Ringi didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't do anything to invite conversation. And yet Taror felt trapped. Not by walls, not by people, but by history, by longing, by the unspoken promise of reckoning. Eru, oblivious. Taror, you have to see this. You'll love. She shook her head, focusing on anything but the pull from the office. But even his excitement couldn't drown out the magnetic weight pressing her spine forward, drawing her back toward the glass. Her legs trembled. Her throat went dry. Her hands itched to push open that door, to speak, to unravel the years with one sentence, one confession. And yet fear clenched her stomach like iron. Ringi's eyes softened, just imperceptibly, and Taror felt it like a chain tightening. One soft tilt of her head, one quiet, Measured exhale, and suddenly escape wasn't an option. Every step she had tried to take away only tightened the trap. Her body went rigid. The showroom seemed too wide, too bright, too loud. And there, through the hum of engines and the distant city beyond the glass, she realized the truth. She wasn't running anymore. She was caught. By memory. By desire. By the gaze that had waited 5 years. And this time, there was no door left open behind her. Act 2, Scene 6, the office door. Terror's steps toward the office door were hesitant, calculated. Not courage. Not surrender. But curiosity. A need to understand a thought that had lodged itself behind her ribs. She stopped just short of knocking, fingers brushing the polished wood. Heart hammering, she forced herself to speak, voice low, almost a whisper. Why let him test the car if it wasn't for sale? The office was quiet. Too quiet. Then Rengi's voice, measured, calm, with just the faintest edge of amusement. Because, she said, tilting her head slightly, storm gray eyes steady on Terror's reflection in the glass, I wanted you to feel it. That thought of wanting something so badly that you would do anything just to see it being ripped away. Terror froze. Her pulse slammed against her ribs. Her eyes darted to the car now idle outside the showroom, but her mind, her body, knew immediately the words weren't about the McLaren. The air thickened. Silence stretched long enough to feel like a physical weight pressing on her chest. Terror's throat constricted. Words faltered. She had rehearsed explanations, apologies, excuses for everything except this. The thing Rengi had left unsaid, the thing she had run from for 5 years. Rengi leaned back slightly, calm, imperious, her gaze softening just enough to let Terror know she wasn't being mocked. She wasn't punishing. She was teaching, measuring, revealing. Terror's knees weakened. She wanted to step closer, wanted to speak, wanted to ask the question she dared not even form aloud. Was it me you meant? The room seemed to shrink around her. The distance between them, physical, emotional, temporal, was smaller than it had ever been, yet impossibly vast. Terror understood that the test, the denial, the observation, it was never about the car. It had always been about her. And now, for the first time in 5 years, Terror knew exactly what she was being measured against. And exactly how much she had feared facing it. Act 3, Scene 1, Tension in Motion. Era pushed open the office door cautiously, sensing more than seeing. The McLaren still growled faintly outside, its roar fading into the distance, but the showroom felt charged, heavy with a quiet he could not ignore. Terror. His voice was even, but the edge of curiosity, and something else, crept in. I felt it. Something's off. Terror sat stiffly, hands clasped in her lap, gaze fixed on the floor. She wanted to look at him, to explain, to cry, to confess anything. But the past had planted roots inside her chest, tangled with guilt and unspoken love, and the present demanded answers she wasn't ready to give. Arrow stepped closer, hesitation battling his need to understand. I don't get it, he admitted, voice quieter now. I thought this was just a car thing. But he glanced at Rengi. Is this about her? Terror's throat tightened. She wanted to nod. She wanted to scream. She wanted to disappear. Instead, she stayed still. Caught between who she had been and who she was now, she realized that neither truth nor lie would save her. The years of running, of silence, of carefully measured avoidance, all of it had led here. Eru's gaze softened, sensing her internal struggle, but not yet grasping the history of it. Terror, talk to me. Please. Her lips parted, then closed again. Words refused her. Not because she didn't trust him, but because speaking now would fracture something fragile, a delicate balance between past wounds and present reality. He moved closer, gently placing a hand near hers, but she didn't take it. She couldn't. She felt herself teetering on the edge of confession, caught between the life she had built and the ghosts she had left behind. Rengi's presence was a silent counterweight. Storm gray eyes locked on hers, unblinking, unreadable. Eru's frustration flared slightly, tempered by concern. Terror. Please. I can't. She shook her head, barely perceptible, but the motion spoke volumes. She was not ready. And in that room, filled with engines, light, and shadow, Taror Tahana realized something terrifyingly beautiful. She was standing at the intersection of all the lives she had ever lived. And none of them had taught her how to choose. Act 3, Scene 2, Frustration and the Name. Eros stepped closer, closer than Taror expected, and the frustration in his eyes could no longer be contained. Taror, I don't understand. You've been distant for years. And now, what is this? Why is this here? Why is she here? Taror's chest heaved. Words lurked on her lips, a flood barely restrained, but fear and shame tied her tongue. She shook her head, lips pressed tight, unwilling, unable. Eros' voice softened, but the edge of insistence remained. You've been holding something back from me, something important. I can feel it. Every time you look at her, his words stopped midair. He froze, eyes widening as a memory slammed into him. 7 months ago. A conversation in a quiet cafe, just the two of them. Taror had hesitated, fingers twisting a spoon nervously. She had said, almost in a whisper, "There was someone I loved once. Her name was Rengi." Eros' heart hammered. The puzzle pieces he had been fumbling with suddenly clicked into place. The distance. The silences. The way Taror sometimes flinched when discussing love, history choices. Rengi. The name carried weight. Resonance. Nuclear force. Eros' eyes flicked to the calm, unyielding figure of Rangi Arya Tammy Hannah, watching. The tension in the room condensed like storm clouds ready to break. You mean, it's her? He asked, voice barely above a whisper, disbelief lacing every syllable. Taror couldn't speak. She only nodded faintly, head bowed, heat burning her cheeks. The past had finally landed in the present with a violent grace. Ero exhaled slowly, as if releasing all the confusion, frustration, and tension he had been holding for years. His gaze softened, a dawning understanding and a pang of helplessness. "So that's it," he said, voice quiet now, almost reverent. "That's why, everything. The distance. The running." Taror's pulse thundered in her ears. She couldn't hide, couldn't look away. She had run from this moment for 5 years, but now it was here. She was caught, not just by Rengi's gaze, but by the truth Ero had finally named aloud. The room was silent, heavy with acknowledgement. History, love, fear, and desire collided in that moment, and the air seemed to hum around them. Rengi's storm-gray eyes didn't blink. She had been waiting, but now the scene had shifted. The past was fully present, and the reckoning could no longer be postponed. Taror Tahana realized, with a sick, beautiful certainty, that running had ended. The story, finally, demanded her choice. Act 3, Scene 3, Era's conflict and the question. Era stepped back slightly, running a hand through his hair, jaw tight. The adrenaline from the McLaren's ride had drained, leaving raw curiosity, frustration, and something heavier, awareness. The pieces he had been chasing, the unease he had sensed all day, finally slotted into place. Taror's past. The name. Rengi. And now, standing in the glass office, tension thick and unyielding, he realized he had stumbled into a story he hadn't been part of. A story that had already defined her, had already shaped the choices she had made. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in years he saw the depth of her hesitation, the weight she carried, the history she had run from and now, finally, could not escape. Taror, his voice was softer now, laced with confusion, frustration, and something raw that made her stomach tighten. "Was all of this you?" He gestured vaguely at the McLaren, the showroom, the impossible tension that hung between them. "Was the reason I couldn't get the car, was it because of you?" The words landed like a hammer. Taror's breath caught. Her pulse raced. Everything in her screamed, "Don't answer, don't look, don't move," but the truth pressed against her chest, burning and uncontainable. She swallowed, shaking her head slightly, but her silence spoke louder than any denial could. Ero's eyes searched hers, hungry for answers, desperate to untangle a history he had only just begun to understand. "Yes," he said finally, almost to himself, the dawning clarity sharp and almost painful. "It was you, wasn't it?" Taror's throat tightened. Her lips quivered. She wasn't ready to speak the words aloud, not yet, but the weight of admission pressed against her anyway. He had named it. He had given shape to the tension, the longing, the impossibility of her fear. And all the while, Rengi's eyes, calm and piercing, followed every movement, every flicker of hesitation, every beat of a heart too long restrained. Taror realized, with a hollow, beautiful ache, the past had collided with the present, and nothing, not cars, not fear, not silence, could protect her now. She was caught fully, irrevocably. And for the first time in 5 years, she felt the impossibility of running. Act 3, Scene 4, Crossing the Threshold. Taror had stepped out of the office to try and calm Arrow, but she realized the truth. She must deal with the monster in herself first. Taror's hand hovered over the door handle for a heartbeat that stretched impossibly long. Her chest tightened, her stomach knotted. Every step forward felt like stepping through fire. Finally, she pushed the door open. The office was quiet, ambient light spilling over sleek surfaces, and there, calm, unflinching, Rengi Area Tammy Hannah. Storm gray eyes fixed on hers, assessing, patient, unforgiving. Taror swallowed, words lodged like stones in her throat. She had rehearsed confessions, apologies, excuses for 5 years, but none seemed enough. She hesitated, taking another step, and suddenly the weight of all the years crashed down on her. Rengi said nothing. She simply watched, waiting, letting the silence stretch, letting the air hum with unspoken truths. Taror's hands clenched at her sides. She realized then, fully, the depth of what she owed. Not a word of explanation would be enough to untangle the hurt, the fear, the abandonment. Not apologies. Not reasoning. Not the 5 years she had spent running. "I owe you," Taror whispered finally, voice raw, trembling. "Everything I left unsaid, everything I ran from. I owe you a world full of explanations. And she swallowed hard, gaze dropping briefly. "I don't even know where to start." Rengi's lips curved, almost imperceptibly, but her eyes did not soften. They held the gravity of the storm she had survived and the patience to let Taror finally bear witness to it. "You'll start by being here," Rengi said finally, calm but undeniable. "And by not running. Not now. Not ever again. That's where it begins." Taror felt her knees threaten to buckle, but she steadied herself. The office, once a barrier, a reflection of distance, now felt like the center of gravity she had been orbiting without knowing it. She took a careful breath, meeting Rengi's gaze for the first time fully, seeing not just the past, but the possibility of something unspoken, fragile, and achingly real. "I'm here," Taror said. "And I want you to understand. I want to explain." Rengi didn't interrupt. She merely nodded, the invitation and the challenge entwined in her calm presence. Taror realized, with a jolt, that this moment, the crossing of the threshold, the facing of years, fear, and desire, was the true reckoning. And it was only the beginning. Act 3, Scene 5, Confession and the Frozen Moment. Taror's hands shook, though she forced them to her sides, grounding herself. Her voice was low, trembling, each word carrying the weight of years of regret. I ran," she began. "Not because of you. Not really. She swallowed hard. "My family. I thought they would never accept us. I thought I wasn't enough. That I would ruin everything for you. So I made excuses, stupid, flimsy excuses, and Her voice cracked. She looked away, eyes brimming with tears she couldn't shed yet. "I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was protect my own fear. My cowardice. I didn't even give you the truth. Her throat tightened, and then the words that had burned inside her for 5 years finally escaped. "And then, my parents, they were never against us. Never. They only wanted me to be sure. And I wasn't. You wanted a family, I was not ready. I didn't understand, not until it was too late. You were gone. And I let you go." The room fell silent. Rangi froze. Storm gray eyes, wide now, not with anger, but with a sudden, piercing stillness. The words hung in the air like a struck chord that refuses to fade. Her lips parted, then pressed into a thin line, uncharacteristic, almost unreadable. Taror felt it immediately, the moment where truth cuts sharper than lies. Where confession is not a bomb, but a scalpel. She realized she had unearthed something even Rengi had not expected to hear, the misjudgment of time, the cruel intersection of fear and love. I know I owe you more than words, Taror whispered, voice barely audible. But I had to. I had to tell you the truth. Even if it's too late. Rangi remained still. The storm in her eyes was tempered by a flash of something else. Shock? Pain? The faintest flicker of understanding? Taror couldn't tell. She only knew the air between them had shifted, unsettled, fragile, charged with the possibility of reconciliation, or the finality of heartbreak. And in that frozen moment, Taror realized 5 years had not erased the depth of what she had lost. But finally, the truth was in the open. Act 3, Scene 6, Rengi speaks. Rengi leaned back slightly in her chair, fingers laced on the desk, eyes fixed on Taror with a slow, deliberate intensity. The silence stretched long enough for Taror's chest to ache, each heartbeat louder than the last. Finally, Rengi spoke, her voice low, steady, but carrying the weight of everything she had held inside. You left, she said simply. No anger. No accusation. Just the absolute truth. Not because I did anything wrong. Not because I demanded too much. Not because you weren't enough. You left because you let fear choose for you. Taror flinched, guilt twisting tighter in her chest. Rengi's eyes softened, but not enough to offer comfort. I came back here, she continued, voice calm but razor-sharp, and I built a life in the spaces you abandoned. Every choice, every risk I took, every success you didn't see. I did it while carrying the absence you left behind. And yet, you stand here now, years later, telling me what you finally understood. Taror's throat burned. She wanted to cry, to explain, to beg, but no words felt worthy. Rengi leaned forward slightly, her storm-gray gaze locking on Taror's. Do you know what that feels like? She asked softly, almost a whisper. To give your heart fully and have it left behind? To love someone who ran because they were scared of being enough? Taror shook her head slowly, tears welling, words choking in her throat. I waited, Rengi said, almost to herself now, a quiet edge of pain threading through the calm. Not out of weakness, not out of hope alone, but because I needed to see if you could find the courage to face the truth. And now, here you are. But courage isn't just walking through a door, Taror. Courage is everything that comes after. The silence returned, but it was different now. Heavy, yes, but no longer purely threatening. It was charged with possibility, the fragile, terrifying promise that years of fear and absence could be confronted. Rengi leaned back, eyes never leaving Taror. So, you owe me a world of explanations. And I am ready to hear them. But know this, she said, voice low, steady, commanding, I will not accept excuses. I will not accept fear dressed as reason. I will accept only truth. Everything else is nothing. Taror swallowed, tears finally spilling, and realized the full weight of what she had stepped into, of a reckoning not just with the past, but with the woman she still loved. And in that moment, the office became more than a room. It became the battlefield and the sanctuary all at once. Act 4, Scene 1, The Hard Truth. Rengi leaned forward, eyes boring into Taror's, the calm in her voice masking the force behind every word. Tell me, she said slowly, deliberately. Why him? She gestured vaguely toward Eru, who lingered outside the office, still part of the world Taror had tried to inhabit. Why a man? I could maybe understand if it had been a woman. Or even if you had stayed alone. But this choice you made? Tell me why you ran to the safe option. Taror's lips quivered. Her chest ached, her hands shook, but she forced herself to remain standing, though every instinct screamed to collapse. I was scared, she whispered, voice breaking. I didn't know how to deal with the fear. I thought if I chose the safe path, the one everyone expected, maybe maybe it wouldn't hurt as much. Maybe I could survive it. Rengi's gaze didn't soften. If anything, it sharpened. Survive it? She asked, voice low but deadly calm. You call this surviving? Leaving? Running? Choosing someone you didn't love because you were afraid to face what you really felt. Terror's throat tightened. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I had to protect myself. I thought if I ran, I could somehow undo the hurt before it began. Rengi's hand tapped the desk lightly, deliberate. You didn't deal with your fear. You didn't face it. You ran. And worse, you think you can just step back into the story now. You think that saying all of this, after 5 years, means you're ready to move forward. Terror's eyes filled with tears. Her voice, barely above a whisper, trembled. I know I failed. I know I. Rengi leaned back slightly, the storm in her gaze becoming almost unbearable. You might be ready someday. Maybe. But I need to see the truth, not excuses. Not fear. I need to see if you can confront it fully, without running to a safe option. And right now, I'm not even sure you will ever be ready. The words landed like steel. Terror's knees threatened to buckle, but she remained standing, trembling, because in that moment she understood the magnitude of the reckoning she had invited. Rengi's eyes softened, just a fraction, but the weight remained. So, start by telling me everything, she said, calm, merciless. No more hiding. No more running. Everything that kept you from me, now. Terror drew in a shaky breath. For the first time in 5 years, she realized there would be no shortcuts, no excuses, no safe choices. Only truth. And the real reckoning, the one she had been running from, was just beginning. Act 4, Scene 2, Facing Truth, Earning Back. Terror stood in the office, the weight of 5 years pressing down like a physical force. Her throat was dry, her hands shaking, and yet every instinct screamed that she could not run, not this time. Rengi's eyes bore into her, calm but unyielding, a living measure of the years of hurt and longing. If you want anything from me, Rengi said softly but sharply, you will not take it. You will earn it. You will prove, not with words, but with courage, that you are ready to face the truth. Terror's chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to beg, to explain, but even as the words formed, she realized that nothing would be enough unless it came from the raw, unshielded truth. Her gaze flicked toward the door. Arrow waited outside, oblivious to the storm inside the office, caught in his own sense of confusion and awe. Terror took a shaky breath and opened the door. Arrow, she began, voice quivering. I need to tell him. Rengi's gaze never left hers, and Terror felt the invisible tether tighten. The words she had rehearsed for months threatened to crumble under the weight of Rengi's presence. You will say it, Rengi said calmly. Every word, every truth you have been afraid to face. Don't hide it. Don't soften it. Not for him. Not for me. Not for anyone. If you want to step forward, you do it fully. Or you do not step at all. Terror closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, letting herself feel the gravity of the moment. 5 years of running, 5 years of fear, 5 years of silence, all converging on this single point in time. She opened her eyes, trembling, and met Rengi's gaze. I ran, she whispered. Not because I didn't love you, not because I didn't want us. I ran because I was scared. Scared that I wasn't enough, scared that I couldn't protect what we had, scared that if I tried, I'd fail. And in that fear, I let everything slip away. I let you go. Rengi's eyes didn't soften. They didn't blink. They simply measured, weighed, and waited. Terror swallowed, every nerve raw. And you were never the reason. It was always me. My fear. My cowardice. My inability to face the truth at the right time. Rengi's hand lifted slightly, a faint gesture, reminder of the standards she demanded. Keep going, she said, voice steady, unflinching. Don't stop until there's nothing left you are hiding from me. If you want back what you lost, earn it. No excuses. No fear. No half-truths. Terror's knees threatened to give way, but she steadied herself. She had crossed the threshold. Now it was all or nothing. The office held its breath with her. Eru waited, sensing the tension, but unable to understand the gravity. Inside, the storm had only just begun. Act 4, Scene 3, The Pouring of the Heart. Taror drew in a trembling breath, every nerve raw, every heartbeat a drum of reckoning. Her hands shook at her sides as the words tumbled, fragile, desperate. I was terrified, she began, voice barely above a whisper. Terrified that I wasn't enough. That my family, my heritage, everything I thought I needed to hold together would collapse if I dared to love you openly. I thought, if I stayed quiet, if I ran, I could survive the fear. I could survive the heartbreak before it even began. Her gaze dropped, catching nothing, but the room felt like it was narrowing around her. I thought if I ran, I could hide. I could protect both of us from the world, from ourselves. But all I did was protect me. And in doing so, I destroyed what was already ours. I let you go. Tears finally spilled, warm and unrestrained, and her voice cracked. I didn't realize how much I lost until it was gone. Until the days stretched into years, and she swallowed hard, choking on the words. I watched you leave, watched the world go on without you. And she paused, shivering with the weight of confession. I thought if I threw myself at something else, someone else, it could fill the empty space. I thought I could run from the truth in my heart by making it someone else's story, someone safer. Her gaze finally lifted, meeting Rungi's eyes fully. But no one was safe. Not Eru, not me. Not anyone. I realized too late. You were the only one I ever wanted. The only one I ever needed. And I was too afraid to admit it. Too afraid to face it. Too afraid to be enough. Taror's knees shook, but she remained standing, raw, trembling, exposed. I am not asking for forgiveness. Not yet. I am only asking to be seen, to be heard, to show that the woman who ran is still here, willing to face the truth, willing to face you, to face everything I've done wrong. The room fell silent. Every breath hung between them, every heartbeat marking the weight of 5 years finally spoken aloud. Rengi didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. The storm in her eyes had not softened, but it had shifted, acknowledgement, measured and steady, weaving through the quiet. Taror realized then, she had said everything she had been carrying, every fear, every regret, every cowardice. And now she waited. Not for forgiveness. Not for reassurance. Not for relief. Only for Rengi's response and the possibility of what could come next. Act 4, Scene 4, Rengi's response and the first reckoning. Rengi leaned back in her chair, eyes unwavering, voice calm but edged with authority and unspoken fire. You've spoken, she said, quiet but sharp. You've let me hear the fear, the excuses, the running. Good. That is the first step. Taror's chest heaved. I've said it. No, Rengi interrupted, soft but deadly, saying it isn't enough. Words are wind. Proof is action. And the first proof I demand from you, she said, gaze locking onto Taror's trembling form, is to be honest with Eru. Everything. You owe him that much. Taror's throat tightened. She had known this was coming, but knowing and facing it were two very different things. Her gaze flicked toward the office door, where Eru stood, still unaware, still caught in the edges of a story far bigger than he could imagine. I don't know if I can, she whispered. You can, Rungi said, calm and unwavering. You will. Because if you want anything from me, you must start there. You must face the consequences of your cowardice fully. No shortcuts. No softening. No hiding behind fear. You will do this. And then, we will see what remains. Taror drew a deep, shaking breath and stepped toward the door. The office felt suffocating, yet liberating in its gravity. She opened it to find Eru waiting, bright-eyed, unaware, still laughing at some distant thought of cars and power. Eru, her voice cracked before she could steady it. We need to talk. He looked at her, puzzled, sensing the tension, the tremble in her hands, the unsaid words hanging in the air. Taror? What's wrong? She inhaled sharply, forcing the truth past the tightness in her throat. I've been living a lie with you. I haven't. I haven't been honest with you, with myself, and with everything that matters. I can't keep doing this. I. Her words faltered, but the truth pressed forward. I'm breaking up with you, Aru. I'm not yours to hold. And I've been dating a shell of myself for months. You didn't get me. Not really. I can't continue this. You deserve truth, and I failed to give it. Aru's face fell. Confusion, shock, and dawning hurt collided, each emotion painting his expression with grief he hadn't expected. Wait, what? Are you serious? You, for 6 months. You thought you had me, Taror said, voice raw and trembling. But you didn't. I wasn't here. Not fully. Not really. And I can't do that to you anymore. Aru ran a hand through his hair, swallowing, anger and disbelief warring with heartbreak. So, all this time, all the smiles, the plans, the everything, was just nothing? Taror flinched, but she met his gaze. It wasn't nothing to me. But it wasn't real. Not the way you deserve. And I can't keep pretending it is. Aru's jaw tightened. For the first time, he saw clearly what had been eluding him all along. The person he thought he was dating was only half there, haunted by the past, consumed by fear. So, she's gone, he muttered, voice hollow. Yes, Taror whispered, tears spilling freely now. I have to let her go. And I have to face what I really feel. I can't run anymore. Inside the office, Rengi's eyes watched every moment, measuring the weight of Taror's confession, the tremor of truth, the first step in the climb back toward her. Proof, she thought, is always action. And now, Taror had begun. Act 4, Scene 5, Rengi responds to courage. Taror closed the office door behind her, the echo of the conversation with Era still ringing in her ears. Her chest heaved, raw and trembling, but a small ember of clarity had begun to glow. Rengi watched her from across the room, storm-gray eyes calm yet impossibly sharp, like ice and fire tempered together. The air between them was thick, charged with the weight of years, and the raw truth Taror had finally spoken aloud. You've taken the first step, Rengi said slowly, deliberately. Each word was measured, yet heavy with gravity. You told him. You faced what you were afraid of. That is courage. But make no mistake, Taror, courage alone isn't enough to walk back into this. Not yet. Taror swallowed, chest tight. I know, she whispered. I don't expect forgiveness. Not yet. You just did the first thing right, Rengi interrupted, calm but unyielding. You admitted the truth. You stepped into fear. That's the beginning. Proof is in action, not just words. And this, she gestured slightly toward the office, toward herself. This is where the real reckoning begins. Taror's hands clenched at her sides. I'm ready, she said, though her voice wavered. I want to earn it. Whatever it takes. Rengi leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing slightly, piercing into Taror's very core. You want me back, she said quietly, almost a whisper, but wanting isn't enough. Every choice you've made for 5 years has built a wall. And now, you have to prove you're ready to tear it down. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. Step by step. Action by action. Show me you're no longer running. Taror felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders, heavy but clarifying. I will, she said firmly, voice stronger despite the tremor. I'll show you. I'll do whatever it takes to be worthy of whatever is left between us. Rengi's lips curved into the barest hint of a smile, almost imperceptible. Desire, pain, and judgment mixed in the storm-gray depths of her gaze. Good, she said softly. Then begin by facing everything you've avoided, starting here with me. No excuses. No fear. No half-truths. And remember this, she paused, letting the words land like tempered steel. Every action from here on will be the measure of who you are. Every choice. Every breath. Earn me, Taror. Because if you falter again, The door you just stepped through will close, and I won't be opening it again. Taror's breath caught, but the fire inside her flared in response. She nodded slowly, the tremble in her body now mixed with resolve. The reckoning had begun. And for the first time in 5 years, the storm wasn't just fear, it was possibility. Act 4, Scene 6. Taror's first real action. Weeks passed. Taror exhaled, letting the tremor in her hands settle into determination. Words had broken the ice. Now she needed to move. She looked at Ringi, sitting like a storm contained, and knew this first step had to bridge the years, the fear, and the distance. She stepped closer, careful, deliberate. Then she reached for the one thing she had avoided for 5 years, the unfinished piece of Ringi's world she had once abandoned, something personal, symbolic, tied to their bond. It was a sketchbook Ringi had left behind in the first year of her absence, full of designs for a dealership and even a few private, personal sketches meant only for Taror. Taror had kept it and tucked it away, afraid, ashamed, not ready to engage with the memories it held. Now she brought it forward, hands steady. "Ringi," she said, voice soft but unwavering. I found this. I never dared to return it. I should have years ago. I was too afraid. I am giving it back. Not as an excuse, not as a gesture, but because I can finally face it. And because I want to start being present. Fully. No more running. She placed the sketchbook carefully on Ringi's desk. Her fingers lingered for a heartbeat on the edge of the leather, a silent acknowledgement of the time lost, the fear faced, the courage claimed. Ringi's eyes followed every movement, absorbing the weight of this act. It was simple, yes, but profound. Tangible proof that Taror was stepping into responsibility, into presence, into honesty. The gesture carried the weight of apology, remorse, and the first glimmer of hope. "You've taken the first step," Ringi said quietly, almost reverently. "But remember, this is only the beginning. Words brought you here, Taror. Courage brought you here. Action will decide whether you stay." Taror nodded, heart pounding, knowing she had crossed the threshold from fear to action. One step, yes, but a step toward earning back everything she had lost, toward proving that the woman who had run could finally be worthy of Ringi's trust and love. Outside the office, the hum of the dealership continued. But inside, in that quiet, charged space, 5 years of silence, fear, and regret were finally beginning to be rewritten. Act 4, Scene 7. The sequence of redemption begins. Taror left Ringi's office with a sense of both trepidation and resolve. The sketchbook had been the first step, but it could not stand alone. If she wanted to prove herself, she needed a sequence, consistent, deliberate, and meaningful. She started with a 5-step plan. Step 1. Presence without expectation. Taror made a point of being present in Ringi's world, not as an observer, not as a shadow, but as a careful, silent support. She returned to the dealership each day, not for Ringi's attention, not to be close, but to witness her work, respect her space, and learn the unspoken rhythms of her life. She handled small tasks that Ringi usually carried alone, anticipating needs before being asked, subtly showing care and understanding without fanfare. Step 2. Honesty in every interaction. Every word Taror spoke was now unflinching truth. When Ringi asked questions about her absence, about her fears, Taror answered fully, without evasion. She recounted moments she had never admitted, shared regrets she had hidden, and allowed herself to be vulnerable in ways that left no room for illusion or half-truths. Step 3. Rebuilding trust through action. Taror volunteered for projects that had once been her domain, but that Ringi had been forced to manage alone. She didn't seek praise or recognition. She sought to show through diligence and respect that she was reliable, present, and committed. She didn't rush Ringi's judgment, understanding that trust could only be rebuilt gradually, piece by piece. Step 4. Tangible reminders of commitment. Taror began leaving small but meaningful gestures, notes of acknowledgement tucked into design folders, and taking care of the things she had once abandoned. Each act was deliberate, visible, and repeated enough to demonstrate consistency, the only true proof of changed intention. Step 5. Facing her own fears head-on. The final piece was internal. Taror confronted the fear that had driven her away. She no longer hid from the past, no longer ran from desire or guilt. She met it head-on, revisiting places that had been painful, confronting memories of the night she ran, and allowing herself to feel everything she had suppressed. These moments were private, but they fueled every outward act, giving her presence authenticity and depth. Rangi observed all of this silently, letting Taror demonstrate that courage and honesty had teeth now. Desire, pain, and longing simmered beneath Rangi's composure, but she would not give in too easily. Each small action, each choice Taror made, became a piece of currency in earning back a heart that had been guarded for far too long. Taror understood this sequence would be long, taxing, and filled with emotional landmines, but every act, every choice, was a step closer to reclaiming what had been lost. For the first time in years, she felt the clarity of purpose. She would not run. She would not falter. The storm between them had not passed, it had only begun to roar, and Taror was learning how to move within it. And she continued pushing forward for the next weeks. Act 5, Scene 1. The Leap of Fear, the Declaration of Love. The dealership buzzed with life, salespeople moving between cars, engines humming outside, sunlight catching polished steel and glass. Yet in the center of the showroom, time seemed to still. Taror stood alone for a heartbeat, chest tight, heartbeat pounding in her ears. She had done everything to prove herself: honesty, presence, courage in small gestures, rebuilding trust piece by piece. But this final act was the one thing she had always feared. Vulnerability made physical, undeniable, and public. Taror took a deep breath, steadying the tremor in her hands. She had made the appointment, an in vitro consultation scheduled for next week, a tangible promise that she was ready to build a future, to confront her fears head-on, to embrace life with Rangi fully. She turned to Rangi, who had been observing quietly from her office doorway, eyes blazing with curiosity, caution, and desire. "Rangi," Taror said, voice clear, cutting through the hum of the showroom. I can't promise I'll ever be perfect. I can't erase the years I ran. But I can promise that I will never run from us again." Rangi's eyes softened, just barely, the faintest shift in the storm. Taror's hands trembled as she reached for the small velvet box in her purse. She dropped to one knee in the center of the showroom, the polished floor reflecting sunlight across her upturned face. "I want a future with you," she said, voice strong despite the quiver of fear. "I want a life with you. I've faced my fear. I've faced the past. And now, I want to face every tomorrow with you. Rangi Arya Tammy Hannah, will you marry me?" The room went silent. Staff paused mid-step, glances exchanged, the world narrowing to the two of them. Rangi's eyes widened slightly, then softened, flickering with emotion, pain, longing, desire, and the faintest trace of a smile that hadn't appeared in years. Taror held her breath, waiting, heart hammering against her chest. Every fiber of her being had been laid bare. Rangi's voice broke the silence, low and measured, dripping with both challenge and love. "You've risked everything," she said, taking slow steps toward Taror. "Your pride, your fear, your heart. And yet, you still kneel before me." "Yes," Taror whispered, voice trembling but unwavering. "Because you're worth it. Every risk, every fear, every moment I ran from this truth. But I can't run anymore. Not from you. Not from us." Rangi paused in front of her, eyes blazing like lightning contained in glass. Then, slowly, deliberately, she reached out and lifted Taror's chin, forcing her gaze to meet hers fully. The storm had passed, only to be replaced by a torrent of possibility, of desire, of love reclaimed. "Yes," Rangi breathed, voice low, resonant, carrying all the weight of years and pain and hope. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Taror's hands shook, tears spilling freely as relief and joy collided. Around them, the dealership erupted in applause, but the world inside the showroom had shifted forever. Two hearts, battered by fear and time, now fully aligned, standing on the precipice of everything they had dared to reclaim. Act 5, Scene 2, Public Kiss, Private Surrender. The showroom seemed to hold its breath. Staff frozen mid-step, sunlight glinting off polished chrome and leather, engines humming softly in the background. Taror remained on her knee, chest heaving, heart pounding like a war drum. Rengi's eyes softened fully now, desire mingling with every emotion she had contained for years. Slowly, deliberately, she bent down. Their faces were inches apart, the weight of years pressing into that small space. "Get up," Rengi whispered, voice low and commanding, pulling Taror to her feet. Their hands found each other naturally, trembling fingers entwining. Then, finally, the kiss. Slow, fierce, desperate, and tender all at once. It was a culmination of every stolen glance, every fear faced, every truth confessed. The world outside, the bustling showroom, the polished floors, the hum of engines faded into nothing. The staff murmured softly, moved aside, giving them the space without a word. But inside that kiss, time collapsed. 5 years of running, hiding, and longing melted away into the press of lips, the heat of breath, and the shared rhythm of hearts finally aligned. Act 5, Scene 3, Private Moments, Intimacy. Later that evening, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Rengi led Taror into her office, now a sanctuary rather than a place of storm. The air was thick with desire, the tension from years of separation crackling between them. She closed the blinds and enveloped them in a cocoon of intimacy. Rengi's hands roamed slowly, reverently, memorizing, reacquainting herself with the body she had longed for. Taror shivered, yielding fully to the touch she had denied herself for years. "Do you understand what this means?" Rengi whispered against her ear, voice low, smoky, almost dangerous. "Not just the kiss, not just the proposal, but every truth you've faced to get here?" "Yes," Taror breathed, voice trembling. "I understand. And I want it all, with you. Every moment. Every tomorrow." They collapsed onto the leather sofa, tension spilling into heat, longing into touch. Each kiss, each stroke, each sigh was a reclamation, a weaving together of years lost. Taror traced the lines below Rengi's eyes with her fingers, memorizing her again, fully, as if to prove to herself that this reality was no longer a dream. Rengi's lips found hers again, demanding and tender, guiding, showing, asserting desire that had simmered and waited. Taror responded, letting every fear dissolve, letting herself be claimed in body and soul. Their lovemaking was slow, electric, a dance of rediscovery and surrender. No words were needed. Every caress, every whispered name, every shiver carried the weight of the past, the courage of the present, and the promise of the future. Time lost all meaning as they moved together, skin and soul entwined, letting years of separation, fear, and longing be washed away in the heat of love finally reclaimed. Act 5, Scene 4, Love's Ripple. The morning sun poured through the showroom windows, reflecting off polished cars and casting golden light across the floor. Taror and Rengi emerged from the office, fingers intertwined, faces still glowing from their private surrender. The staff, who had sensed the charged air earlier, now watched with soft smiles and quiet approval. There was something different, something unspoken yet palpable, in the way the two women moved together. Confidence, clarity, and a shared joy radiated outward like heat from a sun, warming everyone in its orbit. Taror caught the eye of a young apprentice, a girl who had admired Rengi from afar. The girl's wide, hopeful eyes met Taror's, and Taror smiled, a small, tender acknowledgement that courage and love could reshape even the world around you. The girl's shoulders straightened, a spark of possibility ignited. Even the dealership's most skeptical managers paused, sensing the shift. Where once there had been tension and quiet calculation, there was now energy, light, fluid, contagious. Taror and Rengi's synergy, forged in years of fear and longing, was impossible to ignore. As they walked past the rows of gleaming supercars, Rengi whispered softly, "See that? It's not just us anymore. What we do, how we choose to be, it changes everything." Taror squeezed her hand, heart swelling. I see it. I feel it. And I want to keep building it, every day. Together. Outside the showroom, the city seemed brighter, sharper. Passers-by couldn't name why, but the air felt lighter, the possibilities wider, as if love's courage had rippled outward, brushing against the world beyond the glass doors. The past 5 years of fear and hesitation had finally been transformed into action, honesty, and love energy that refused to stay contained. Ringi pulled Taror close, letting the warmth and quiet triumph settle between them. Then let's make it count, she murmured. For us and for everything we're about to create. Taror rested her head against Ringi's shoulder, the weight of fear lifted, replaced by purpose and promise. The ripple had begun, and there was no turning back. Act 5, Scene 5, the final gesture, McLaren for Aero. The showroom still glimmered with sunlight and the hum of activity, but for Taror and Ringi, the world had narrowed once more. Taror took a deep breath, her gaze steady, her heart full. Ringi, she said softly, her hand brushing against Ringi's, there's something I need to do before we move forward completely. Ringi arched an eyebrow, storm-gray eyes still holding that mixture of desire, pain, and command. What is it? I want to let Era buy the McLaren, Taror said, her voice quiet but resolute. I want to take it to him myself. Not because it matters, not because I want him back, but because he deserves closure. Because he's been patient, and because he didn't judge me too harshly for the shell I was. Ringi's eyes softened imperceptibly, the tiniest flicker of admiration showing. You want to go to him, after everything? Yes, Taror said firmly, voice unwavering now. I want to apologize properly. To thank him for standing by me, even when I wasn't the person I should have been. It's the right thing to do. Ringi considered her for a heartbeat, then nodded slowly. Then go, she said, her tone measured but approving. Go and let him have that. It's part of proving who you've become. Part of showing that honesty, respect, and courage aren't just words, they're actions. And this will be one of them. Taror smiled, a mixture of relief and gratitude washing over her. Thank you, she whispered, squeezing Ringi's hand before letting go, the first step toward extending her courage beyond herself. She walked through the showroom toward the McLaren, the polished metal gleaming under the sunlight, and imagined Eru's surprise, the mix of confusion and understanding on his face. Every step was deliberate, every breath filled with the weight of acknowledgement and gratitude. When she finally arrived at the car, she ran her hands over it, a small, symbolic connection to both the past and the act of making amends. And then, with Ringi watching quietly from her office, she would drive it to him, not as a gift of romance, but as a gift of truth, respect, and the final thread of closure she owed him. Act 5, Scene 6, the McLaren meeting with Aero. Taror arrived at Aero's office, the McLaren gleaming under the sunlight, every curve and angle a promise of speed and precision. Her heart thudded in her chest, but it wasn't fear. This was courage in motion, a step toward righting past wrongs. Era stepped outside, surprise flickering in his eyes as he took in the sight. Taror, is this for me? His voice held that mix of incredulity and curiosity that only he could carry. Yes, she said softly, stepping closer. I wanted to thank you. For your patience. For not judging me too harshly. And I wanted to bring this to you myself. Eru's gaze softened, then sharpened, taking in her sincerity, her courage, the way she held herself now. You didn't have to, he said, though a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. I know, she said, her voice steady. But I needed to. And I wanted to. For a heartbeat, they just looked at each other. The weight of months, even years, hung in the air, but now it was lighter, freed by honesty and acknowledgement. Eru's excitement bubbled to the surface, irrepressible. Well, if it's mine now, then... He opened the door to the McLaren with a flourish, as if unveiling a treasure. Then we have to take it for a spin. Taror's lips quirked into a small, shy smile. All right, but only because you've waited patiently, she teased, sliding into the passenger seat. Eru's hands gripped the wheel, eyes gleaming, energy electric. "Strap in," he said, voice a low rumble of anticipation. The engine purred to life, low and throaty, like a living creature eager to be unleashed. The car surged forward, sunlight and wind whipping past, the thrill of speed and freedom electrifying every nerve. Taror laughed, a clear, unburdened sound, her hands gripping the edge of the seat as Arrow navigated curves and straightaways with the precision and joy of a man who had been waiting for this moment. Yet beneath the laughter and adrenaline, a deeper current ran, gratitude, understanding, and closure. Taror realized that in letting Era buy the McLaren and giving herself honestly, she had released the weight of the past. Arrow understood fully, and in that understanding, there was no bitterness, only excitement and the joy of shared experience. The car roared along the coast, wind tousling her hair, and Taror felt a lightness she hadn't known for years. She glanced at Arrow, saw the gleam in his eyes, and smiled. In that moment, the past was behind her, and she could finally move forward into her love with Rengi, into her life, into freedom. Act 6, Scene 1, Ancestry, Destiny, and the Ripple of Love. The night had fallen over New Plymouth, a soft hush settling across the city. In the quiet of Rengi's office, Taror and Rengi sat side by side, hands intertwined, the glow of the city lights casting delicate patterns across their faces. Taror traced a finger along the line of Rengi's jaw, eyes softened in repose. "Do you ever think," she whispered, "about how we got here? Not just the past few months, but everything. Our families, our ancestors, the lives that led us to this exact moment." Rengi leaned her head against Taror's shoulder, voice low and melodic. "I do. I feel it, like a pulse. The bloodlines, the history, even the choices we didn't make, they all led us to each other. It's as if the world conspired in whispers and storms to bring us here." Taror closed her eyes, letting the truth of it sink in. She could feel her ancestors' strength in her veins, the weight of generations guiding her courage, the resilience of those who came before her. The tattoo on her chin, once merely a mark of heritage, now throbbed with meaning, a symbol not just of lineage, but of the choices she had made and the love she had reclaimed. "And you," Taror murmured, turning to face Rengi fully, "you were always part of it. The world I ran from, the fears I carried, they've all led me back to you. I see it now. Not as a burden, but as a path. Our love, it's bigger than us. It carries history, it carries hope. It carries the future." Rengi's lips curved into a small, almost reverent smile. "And every choice we make from now on," she said, voice husky with emotion, "ripples outward. Not just for us, but for everyone around us and maybe even for generations to come. Love like this, it cannot be contained. It reshapes worlds." They sat in silence for a long moment, the air thick with reflection, connection, and quiet awe. Taror rested her head on Rengi's shoulder, feeling the heartbeat of her partner, the pulse of their shared courage, and the invisible threads of history binding them together. "The world we inherit," Taror whispered, "the world we create, it begins here, with honesty, with courage, with love that refuses to hide. And it will continue," Rengi replied, pressing her forehead to Taror's, "through everything we do. Through every life we touch. Through every storm we face. We are part of something larger, and yet entirely ours." Outside, the city lights twinkled like scattered stars, reflecting the infinite possibilities of love reclaimed, of destiny embraced, and of courage made manifest. In that quiet, luminous space, Taror and Rengi understood their story was not only theirs. It was ancestral. It was cosmic. It was eternal. And in that understanding, the world, quiet, infinite, and waiting, was theirs to step into together. Act 6, Scene 2, Planning a Traditional Wedding. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the hills of New Plymouth. Taror and Rengi sat at a carved wooden table in Rengi's home, scrolls of family records, old photographs, and ancestral artifacts spread before them. The air was thick with intention and history. "We will honor the Mary," Rengi said, fingers tracing the intricate patterns on an old carving. Our families, our ancestors, they will be part of this day. Every ritual, every blessing, it will all reflect who we are and where we come from. Taror nodded, heart swelling. I want my parents there, she said softly. To see us stand together. To witness the courage it took to finally face our truths. Rengi's eyes softened, shadowed with pride and reverence. And I want my Wana to lead the Karakia. The chants, the prayers, they will bind us not just to each other, but to everything that came before us. Together, they planned the elements of the day. Karakia and blessings. The ceremony would open with prayers led by elders, calling on ancestors for guidance and protection, grounding the union in history and spiritual lineage. Wakawanangatanga, a ritual welcoming and acknowledging the joining of families and tribes, sharing stories, laughter, and tears to honor the paths that shaped them. Town exchange. Rengi and Taror would exchange gifts of significance. Taror a carved greenstone pendant representing strength and courage, Rengi a woven flax kete, symbolizing protection and shared life. Traditional dress. Taror would wear a korawai, woven cloak, adorned with her tribal patterns, her moko chin markings radiant under ceremonial light. Rengi would wear a cloak of her own wana, the colors and patterns telling stories of generations, of resilience, of love waiting to be claimed. The ceremony, at the Mary, beneath carved Waranui beams, they would declare their vows aloud. Every word chosen with care, every gesture deliberate. Their love would be both personal and universal, ancestral and contemporary. Shared feast, families and friends would gather, tables laden with kai food, honoring the land, the sea, and the ancestors who made this day possible. Laughter, music, and dancing would follow, celebrating the unity of love and heritage. Taror reached across the table, taking Rangi's hand. It will be perfect, she whispered. Not because it's grand, but because it's ours. Because it reflects everything we've faced and everything we've overcome. Rangi smiled, a soft, radiant expression. It will be a day for the ancestors to watch and smile. And for us, to step into every tomorrow, rooted in tradition, bound by love, and guided by courage. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers of ancestors and the promise of new beginnings. In that quiet, sacred planning, Taror and Rengi laid the first stones of a future built on heritage, love, and the courage to honor both. Act 6, Scene 3. The wedding day. The sun rose over the rolling hills, painting the sky in amber and rose, a quiet witness to what was to come. The Mary, adorned with woven flax, carved beams, and fragrant greenery, hummed with life. Family and friends gathered, voices soft with anticipation, hearts full with the weight of history and joy. Taror stood before a mirror in her family home, the korawai draped across her shoulders, her moko chin marking glowing in the morning light. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from reverence. Each braid in her hair, each careful touch of her traditional adornments was a link to ancestors who had walked these lands before her. Rengi, in a separate room, fastened her own wana cloak, feeling the strength and resilience of generations woven into every thread. Storm gray eyes reflected determination, desire, and deep, abiding love. They both paused to breathe, letting the gravity of the day settle over them, a bridge between past, present, and the future they were claiming together. Arrival at the Mary. The guests lined the pathway, murmurs of awe and delight echoing as Taror stepped forward, guided by the elders. The Waranui stood like a sentinel, carved beams telling stories of courage, love, and lineage. Rengi waited at the ceremonial space, eyes locked on Taror the moment she appeared. Time seemed to slow, the air thick with emotion, ancestral power, and the quiet anticipation of all who bore witness. The Karakia began, led by elders whose voices carried both blessing and history, calling on spirits past to witness, guide, and protect. Taror and Rengi moved forward together, hands brushing, hearts pounding in a silent, shared rhythm. The vows. Standing beneath the carved beams, eyes locked, Taror spoke first. Rangi area Tamihana, I stand before you, before Arwana, and before the ancestors who came before us, to declare my love. I have run, I have feared, I have faltered, but today, I step fully into who I am, and into who we are together. I promise honesty, courage, and devotion, in every breath, every step, every tomorrow. Rengi's voice, steady and resonant, followed. Taror Tahana, you have faced yourself and the world to find me again. Your courage, your heart, your truth, they are the foundation of our love. I promise to walk with you, to honor our ancestors, and to embrace every storm and every joy that comes our way. Together, we are stronger than the past, the present, or what may come. They exchanged tauna, hands pressing against carved greenstone and woven flax, symbols of strength, protection, and shared life. As the final words of the Karakia faded, silence fell. Then, with hearts aligned and the world waiting, they leaned into each other. The kiss was tender, fierce, and sacred, a public and ancestral seal on their love. Gasps and murmurs of approval rose around them, but inside that space, the world narrowed to only Taror and Rengi. The feast that followed was vibrant and rich, tables laden with kai honoring the land and sea, laughter and music weaving through the crowd. Guests shared stories, danced, and toasted the couple with tears and joy. Taror and Rengi moved among their people, hands intertwined, their love now radiant and fully visible. Each smile, each hug, each shared glance was a reminder. Courage, honesty, and love could rewrite history and reshape futures. As the sun dipped low, they retreated to a quiet veranda, away from the celebration. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying scents of the earth, the sea, and distant ancestors. They held each other close, skin against skin, hearts beating as one. Words became unnecessary. Every touch, every sigh, every whispered name spoke volumes. The intimacy was gentle yet electric, a dance of reclamation, desire, and deep emotional resonance. Rengi traced the lines of Taror's moko with her fingers, lips grazing her neck, murmuring, "Every choice, every fear faced, it brought you here. It brought us here." Taror pressed her forehead to Rengi's, voice trembling with love and awe. "And I will never run again. Not from us. Not from love. Not from the world we are building together." The stars above twinkled like ancestral eyes, witnessing their union, blessing the courage that had brought them home to each other, and lighting the path of every tomorrow they would now share. Act 6, Scene 4. The in vitro journey, love, intimacy, and creation. The clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and quiet determination. Taror and Rengi walked hand in hand, their fingers entwined as if to anchor each other through the unknown. Each step was deliberate, a silent pact. Together, they would face every fear, every expectation, every hope. Taror's heart thrummed in her chest. She glanced at Rengi, who returned her look with storm-gray eyes softened by devotion and desire. "Whatever happens," Rengi whispered, "we do this together. All of it, heart, body, and soul." Taror nodded, lips brushing Rengi's in a quick, grounding kiss before they met with the fertility specialist. The procedures, the needles, the monitoring, all of it was clinical, precise, but beneath it lay an intimacy that was far more profound than any act of the body alone. As Taror reclined for the procedure, Rengi's hand never left hers. Fingers laced, palms pressing, a silent conversation of trust and reassurance passing between them. Every injection, every consultation, every moment of waiting became an act of mutual devotion. "I've never been more scared," Taror admitted softly, voice trembling. "Or more certain that this is the right thing to do." Rengi brushed a strand of hair from Taror's face, lips grazing her temple. "I've never had more faith in us. In what we can build. And in you." Later, in the quiet of Rengi's home, now their home, away from the sterile lights of the clinic, they allowed themselves the physical and emotional release of what they had endured. Every touch was charged with gratitude and desire, every kiss a reclamation of courage. Taror traced her fingers along Rengi's neck and shoulders, memorizing every line, every curve, every heartbeat. Rengi responded with equal tenderness, guiding Taror with quiet insistence, as if to say, "We are more than fear, more than the past. We're this here, now, fully alive." Their lovemaking was slow, deliberate, and reverent, a ritual of connection, trust, and longing. It was not only desire, but a deep, visceral communion, a celebration of the courage that had brought them here and the life they were building together. Later, tangled in sheets, hearts still racing, Taror rested her head against Rengi's chest. "Do you feel it?" Rengi murmured. "The life we're beginning even now?" Taror nodded, lips brushing her collarbone. "I do. It's not just a child we're bringing into the world. It's a life forged in honesty, in courage, in love that refused to hide. And every time I look at you, I know we can face anything together." Rengi smiled softly, pressing a kiss to Taror's forehead. "Then let's build it. Every moment, every tomorrow. And let desire, love, and courage guide us, always." Outside, the night whispered of possibilities, of futures unwritten, and of a love strong enough to not only endure, but to create life itself, tender, intimate, and eternally theirs. Act 6, Scene 5, Poetic Meditation on Ancestry and Life. The night lay gentle over the land, stars glimmering like ancient eyes watching from afar. Taror and Rengi sat together on the veranda of their home, the wind carrying the scent of earth, sea, and flax. Their hands were intertwined, fingers speaking a language older than words, older than time. Taror traced the faint lines of her moko with a fingertip, feeling the pulse of generations within her. "Every choice we make," she whispered, "every fear we face, every love we claim, it isn't only ours. It belongs to those who came before and to those who will come after." Rengi rested her forehead against Taror's, eyes reflecting the cosmos. "And every act of courage, every moment of honesty, it ripples outward, like water across a lake. Our love, our family, our life, it becomes part of the lineage, part of the story the ancestors watched and guide." Taror breathed in, letting the truth settle in her chest. "I see them now," she murmured. "The faces I never knew, the voices I carry in my blood. And in their strength, I find my own. In their love, I find the courage to build ours. We are a bridge between past and future, Rengi. Every heartbeat we share, every life we create, it carries everything before us into what's to come." Rengi tightened her hold, lips brushing Taror's ear. "And we will honor it. Every child we bring into the world, every choice we make, every act of love, it will carry the power of our ancestors and the promise of tomorrow. We are not alone. We never were. And we never will be." They sat in silence, letting the wind, the stars, and the pulse of the earth itself witness their quiet communion. Their love, born of courage, tested by fear, and claimed through truth, became a living thread connecting the past, present, and future. Taror lifted her eyes to the sky, seeing in the constellation the faces of those who had guided her, who had shaped her, and her hand came to rest on her growing belly. "This," she said softly, "is more than us. This is lineage. This is legacy. This is life." Rengi kissed her temple, murmuring, "And it is ours to build, together, always." And in that moment, the night felt infinite. Every breath, every heartbeat, every whisper of wind carried the promise of love reclaimed, ancestry honored, and a life boldly, beautifully built together. Epilogue, Legacy of Love. The morning sun spilled gold across the hills of New Plymouth, the same hills that had witnessed vows, courage, and love reclaimed, and the birth of their daughter. In the quiet of their home, laughter and soft coos filled the air. Taror sat beside Rengi in the nursery, hands brushing over the small, perfect form of their child, Anahara Moana Tahana Tamahana, eyes wide with wonder and devotion. The child's tiny fingers curled around Taror's, anchoring her heart in a way that nothing else ever could. "Look at her," Rengi whispered, storm-gray eyes glistening. "Everything we endured, it was for this." Taror smiled, a soft, reverent smile. "Not just for this moment," she said. "For every moment to come. For her life. For ours. For the world we are shaping through love, courage, and honesty." The room was quiet, save for the soft heartbeat of Anahara Moana Tahana Tamahana, a living bridge between past and future. Photographs lined the shelves, ancestors, parents, friends who had supported them, and the moments of triumph and reconciliation that had brought them here. Every face was a reminder that love was never isolated. It rippled, it connected, it endured. Taror lifted Anahara into her arms, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "You are part of a long line of love, of strength, of courage," she murmured. "Your ancestors walk with you. Our choices, our truth, our heart, it all flows into you." Ringi wrapped an arm around Taror, resting her chin atop Taror's head. "And we will guide her, teach her, love her fully. Just as we were guided, just as we were loved. Our legacy isn't just in blood, it's in the courage to face ourselves and the devotion to each other. That's the inheritance we leave." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers of ancestors, of blessings, of the lives that had paved the path. The world felt both vast and intimate, alive with possibility and reverence. Taror glanced at Ringi, eyes shimmering with gratitude and desire. "We built this," she said softly. "Everything we feared, everything we lost, it all led here. And I wouldn't trade a moment." Ringi pressed her lips to Taror's, then to Anahara Moana's tiny head. "No," she whispered. "We wouldn't. And we will continue building, every day, every moment, in love, in courage, and in truth." The morning light caught the three of them together, Taror, Ringi, and Anahara Moana Tahana Tamahana, a perfect alignment of love, ancestry, and the living, breathing testament of courage reclaimed. In that quiet, sacred space, the past, present, and future converged. They were more than Taror and Ringi now. They were a family, a lineage renewed, a legacy of love. And the world, vast and infinite, waited for the ripples they would continue to send outward, touching hearts, shaping futures, and honoring every choice, every truth, every act of courage that had brought them here. Final coda. In the quiet glow of dawn, love breathed between them, Taror, Ringi, and little Anahara Moana Tahana Tamahana, a living thread between past and future. The ancestors whispered in the wind, their voices folded into the heartbeat of the child, into every gentle touch, every shared breath, every vow reclaimed. Courage became cradle, truth became home, and desire became a river, flowing endlessly through the generations they honored and the life they were shaping. And in that sacred, luminous space, the world narrowed to a single, eternal truth: love, once faced, once claimed, never fades. It endures. It ripples. It carries the lineage of all who came before and all who will follow. Here, in their arms, in their hearts, and in the laughter of Anahara, the past, the present, and the future converged, and the legacy of love became infinite. Anahara, angel in Maori, evoking guidance, light, and protection, a nod to hope and the spiritual connection of their love. Moana, ocean, symbolizing depth, continuity, life, and the vast currents of ancestry and destiny flowing through her. Tahana Tamahana, carrying the bloodlines of both parents, anchoring her in lineage and family. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.